You now know the real meaning of never forget. It's that feeling of mixed emotions of anger and sadness. It doesn't just mean, hey, remember the shooting that happened at my school. It means really remembering and recognizing those people who died. Those 17 people with futures died. But it also means to remember those who lived, those who saved lives, and those who opened the door for the last student in the hallway.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dr. Carolyn Parker. I have the privilege to serve as the co-chair of the Ethical Action Committee of the American Ethical Union. It's also my honor to be able to speak to you very briefly tonight to point out to you that the Elliott-Black Award was established in 1971. This award is given by the American Ethical Union as a recognition and a tribute to an individual or an organization in the larger community who has made a significant ethical contribution to society, often at personal risk and under great hardship.
This year's recipient of the 2019 Elliott-Black Award is the Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School from Parkland, Florida. The high school and its entire community of students, faculty, staff, and families have been an inspiration and a model for millions of Americans. They have shown not only fortitude, resilience, and courage in response to an extraordinary tragedy, but also creativity and outspoken activism, which served as an inspiration for so many others. The student-founded Never Again MSD advocacy group lobbied for legislative action on gun violence. As a direct result, on March 9th, 2018, Governor Rick Scott signed a bill that raised the minimum age for buying rifles in Florida from 18 to 21. Because of your lead, our nation has been required to confront the issues concerning gun violence in our schools and our neighborhoods. Emergency procedures are being reconsidered and restructured. The easy availability of guns and assault-type weapons has become the subject of renewed scrutiny because of you holding up a mirror to our faces for self-examination.
I'd like to read the inscription from the award, and it is presented to Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in recognition of the great resilience the students and staff have shown by turning profound grief into courageous activism against gun violence.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And now let's pose for the camera.
My name is Rhea Serrano, and my favorite color is orange. My favorite season is winter. I play trumpet. In bands, I'm pretty good at it. I've been playing for a couple years now. I have a little sister. She's annoying, as little sisters are. I have a crazy dog who is equally as annoying. I'm Italian, but I'm also Hispanic. I don't look Hispanic. I promise you I am. So I see you guys are probably wondering why I'm telling you guys these things about myself. And I'm telling you guys these things because I didn't want to come up here and introduce myself as a survivor. I don't want people to think of me any differently just from my past experiences, and I don't want the tragedy that happened at my school to define who I am, because I am so much more than that one event. So here I am telling you guys a little bit about myself. Instead of letting this event define us, we have decided to take action and put all of our grief towards making change. My classmates and I decided to make sure the nation would not forget the names of those who died and the heroes that live at my school. And we wanted to make sure that because this event happened to us, no one would forget us. But never forget doesn't just mean remember those who died. It also means to remember those who lived. Think of all the students at my school who survived and are speaking out. Think of me, for instance. And also, we can't forget the teachers that kept their students alive, like my teacher, Ms. Krawczyk. You now know the real meaning of never forget. It's that feeling of mixed emotions of anger and sadness. It doesn't just mean, hey, remember the shooting that happened at my school. It means really remembering and recognizing those people who died. Those 17 people with futures died. But it also means to remember those who lived, those who saved lives, and those who opened the door for the last student in the hallway. And people always ask me what they can do to help the students at my school. And I finally found a way for everyone to help. and that is to never, ever forget the victims of gun violence, not just from my school, but from everywhere. So when another shooting happens, and I use one because we all know this is going to continue to happen, so when another shooting happens, sit and recognize and remember those who died. Sit and recognize and remember those who saved lives. And sit and recognize and remember those who lived, because those who lived will have to live with this trauma for the rest of their lives. And with this award, you are already honoring our wishes because you are recognizing us for our persistence in activism. So thank you. And if you have to take one thing away from this today, it is to never forget. So please never forget. Thank you.
In her 1957 book, Rahel Varnhagen, philosopher Hannah Arendt wrote that in order to go on living, one must try to escape the death involved in perfectionism. I'm a huge fan of her quotation, not because I've long been impressed by Arendt's scholarship, but because her line so beautifully encapsulates my experience at MSD. To be completely transparent with all of you, I was not at the school on February 14th. I did not teach the students who have become notable activists and public figures, but as the school's speech and debate coach, I am often unduly given credit for a lot of what's been accomplished in the past 16 months. When offered the job of speech and debate coach, which was opened in June of 2018, I took no less than 30 seconds to decide I would apply. And that decision was based on pretty much identical reasons to why MSD is receiving the Elliott-Black Award. I've spent the prior months watching what students have accomplished, what they had inspired, what they were building, and I couldn't look at MSD with any other frame than who wouldn't want to work with the teachers that enabled students to accomplish all of that. I think protest is the perfect word to describe MSD, though not in the conventional organize, march, chant, walkout ways you immediately conjure. The most powerful protest of the MSD community is the courage it takes to come to school each and every day. Alistair McIntyre writes in After Virtue, "Protest becomes a distinctive moral feature of the modern age, and indignation is a predominant modern emotion. The hashtag MSD Strong and Never Forget messages have been a rallying cry of fortitude and resilience, yes. But to me, strength is what McIntyre is describing, an indignation to not cave both in the face and aftermath of trauma. In the face of constant triggers, the MSD community stands in protest of defeatism, in protest of complacency and pity. The MSD community does the work of perpetually returning to the site of a mass trauma. Our ethos extends from an insistence on coming back to school and showing others that reminders of trauma are not insurmountable. Others will continue to need to return to these sites of mass trauma, and the MSD community offers them a symbol for not just how to move forward, but for how to move through that trauma. MSD protests surrender. MSD protests the resistance to reflexivity and looking back at ourselves. MSD resists being shackled by the pain that returns with each fire drill, each textbook that slips off a desk with a devastating thud, or each media truck parked outside our grounds. The ethical might of MSD is the teachers and students, administrators and staff, custodial and cafeteria employees who make each day tenable. In 1896, Felix Adler wrote, "The office of the public teacher is an unenviable and thankless one." Tonight's recognition is a reminder that our job is not always a thankless one. Still unenviable, but not thankless. There is no need for me to laundry list all that you know and see beyond the boundaries of the school itself. But what I believe deserves recognition on par with the prior recipients of this award is the daily triumphs, the daily protest, and the daily survival of the MSD community. While I can never fully comprehend what most of my peers and students went through on February 14th, I could not be more proud to call them my community. I could not be more appreciative to learn from and with them. And I could not be more confident that they deserve recognition for their ethical accomplishments. Thank you.
If you guys can indulge me for a second. Oh, boy. Leah, I love you. Thank you for being so brave. You and those other 24 kids are the strongest soldiers that I know. That's why I come back to school every day. Sorry, I know I should speak into the mic. I also, I have 2 sons. My older son, Stephen, couldn't be here today. I'm really sorry. Don't chant. My youngest is here with me, Matthew. Matthew is here for me today, just like he was on the night of the 14th when he had to pick up his mom from the largest mass shooting on a high school campus in the history of the United States of America. I also want to thank the American Ethical Union for having us here tonight. It truly is an honor to accept this award for activism on behalf of the Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School community. I do have to say, though, that I accept this award with some mixed feelings because the activism that you all saw wasn't the activism that mattered the most, and the activism that mattered the most was hidden because of the activism that you saw. Let me be very clear. I'm a liberal Democrat, and I am totally in favor of gun control because some of this might not sound like it. I want America to be a country with a government that takes a very serious and close look at a citizen, any citizen, who wants to purchase a semi-automatic gun. The reason why the shooter was able to acquire a gun had nothing to do with any legal or administrative loophole in the background check process. It was because he appeared to have a totally clean background. Our laws say, and I'm sure all would agree, that a psychopathic criminal should not be allowed to buy a gun. The shooter was a psychopath, but he was never institutionalized. The shooter was a felon, but he was never arrested. And maybe perhaps most tragically of all, he was a deeply lost soul who was never really helped. Rest assured that I do not absolve him of any responsibility, but the system around him totally failed, and not by accident, but by design. He should never have set foot on a traditional high school campus, but our special education policies push deeply disturbed students into regular classrooms that they cannot handle. And then the education bureaucrats pat themselves on the back for being inclusive. His troubling behavior at MSD should have been documented off the bat, but it was not. He should have been immediately sent back to his specialized school where he was succeeding, but he was not. Our current policies encourage school administrators to ignore student misbehavior and then claim they are lowering suspensions. His criminal behavior should have gotten him arrested in and out of the school system. But the school board and the sheriff office got together and decided to pressure administrators to not arrest kids, almost no matter what. And then they patted themselves on the back for fixing the so-called school-to-prison pipeline. Our tragedy may be the most profound case study in the failure of our educational system that you could possibly imagine. But you probably didn't hear that much about it because when someone would try to bring up these issues, they were attacked or marginalized as somehow being pro-gun. Did you know that in August, before the school board elections, literally every single family of the victims stood together, united, to call upon the community for accountability and change? Probably not, because it didn't get much news. And by that point, the concerns that the parents had about how the system had failed, why security totally broke down, how the superintendent dismissed all criticism as fake news, how the school district covered up its failures and continued to break promises, all of those concerns were marginalized and pushed aside. The national partisan debate totally overshadowed our local practical political efforts, and we lost. And all the students in Broward are worse off for it. Indeed, all students in America are worse off for it. If activism these days means taking every concrete local tragedy and turning it into an abstract national controversy, then please count me out. But if it still means looking carefully at what is around you, working within your community to learn lessons, fix problems, right wrongs, then it is something that we need now more than ever. Whether your inspiration comes from March for Our Lives, Shine MSD, Safe Schools for Alex, Change the Ref, Make Our Schools Safe, or Meadows Movement, I implore you, use that passion to go out and fight for the changes you believe in. Because as honored as we in the Stoneman-Douglas community are to have received this award, our hope and our passion is that you never again need to make the decision to grant this honor To the victims and survivors of another mass shooting, thank you.